House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is saying President Putin probably would have backed off from invading Ukraine if President Biden had shipped weapons to Ukraine sooner. Does the president feel he should have acted sooner?
Well, first, just for fact's sake, we sent a record amount of security assistance to Ukraine during President Biden's first year in office, more than any other president in history. And we shared a significant amount of intelligence with Ukraine about Russia's intentions and military movements, as you all know, because we've talked about it in here. $3.2 billion total, $2.6 billion since this conflict started. That's in direct contrast with our predecessor, who withheld hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid from Ukraine, including javelins, which Mr. McCarthy, who was critical of us in this moment, defended at the time as, quote, the rightful thing to do, because he claimed people believed there was corruption in the Zelensky administration. So I don't know if that's a question for us as much as a question for him. What has changed in that period of time?
Okay, first of all, not for nothing, but Kevin McCarthy is so bad at this. The guy came out and tried to blame Biden for the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine. And unfortunately, I'm not even exaggerating because he said it on national TV.
What really needs to happen is Ukraine is not asking for American men and women to fight. All they're asking for is the weapons to defend themselves. If we would have taken those actions earlier, instead of waiting till after Russia invaded, they probably never would have invaded had we done that sooner.
If only Biden had offered the lethal aid to Ukraine sooner, Russia would have never invaded. Because the real villain in the story isn't Vladimir Putin. No, it's Joe Biden. Got it. Now, two things here. First of all, as Jen Psaki noted, if Kevin McCarthy was really interested in getting lethal aid to Ukraine earlier, you would think that would include the $391 million in lethal aid that Donald Trump withheld as far back as 2019. And the same lethal aid that Kevin McCarthy himself signaled was A-OK as far as he was concerned when he voted against impeaching Trump for doing exactly that. In other words, it was totally fine for Trump to withhold aid so that he could score some dirt on Biden, but when Biden actually does provide aid, with zero preconditions, I might add, McCarthy is the first to claim that Biden's taking far too long. Did I get that right? Second, Republicans are still voting against lethal aid to Ukraine to this day. While Kevin McCarthy is blaming Biden for not doing enough, there are literally 69 Republican members of the House and 31 Republican members of the Senate who, as of just a few weeks ago, refused to vote for military aid to Ukraine. I'll tell you what, it must be freeing to be able to just say whatever arbitrary talking point pops in your head, regardless of how divorced they are from reality. I imagine that must be really nice for Kevin. But here's the thing, of course Kevin McCarthy has to engage in counterfactuals because they're impossible to prove, and Republicans rely on those vague talking points since relying on objective facts and reality doesn't seem to serve their talking points at all. And so instead, McCarthy just stands there and promises that if only Biden had done the thing that he did anyway, that many Republicans are still trying to block him from doing, then that war that Putin's been threatening for a decade wouldn't have happened. I know that sounds far-fetched and quite literally impossible to prove, but trust Kevin McCarthy here, guys. It's not like he's known for lying. Now, the reason for all of this is that Kevin McCarthy knows that within the right-wing ecosystem in which he operates, no one is going to push back. And so he can bash Biden for allegedly not moving fast enough, despite the fact that he himself signaled his support for the last guy who refused to give aid at all unless he could extract some concessions from the Ukrainian president. So if you're a Republican, all I would say is that you deserve elected officials who don't treat you like you're stupid and who have even a modicum of respect for the people who voted them into office. Because while the Kevin McCarthys of the world might be content to launch whatever attack seems politically convenient, all they're doing is proving their disdain for the very people they're talking to. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work, subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I cover the most important stories each week, and my guest is always one of the top political figures, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Cory Booker, and so many more. The podcast link is also right here on this screen, so give it a listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.